Hey everybody, in this video I want to talk about songwriting and my songwriting process and some tips I've learned for writing songs, including lyrics, from a guitar player's perspective. I'm going to use my song Submission as an example, and I'm going to walk you through the process of how I created the song to some of the decisions I made along the way to some tips for songwriting. I'll put a link here for the finished product of the home recorded version of that song. I think it's helpful to hear the finished product after watching this video today, so that way you can see the songwriting decisions I'm talking about. But before we begin, remember to like and subscribe. That way you get notified when I post new content. I post new videos like this at least once a week, sometimes more. And check out my website, ScottO'BrienGuitar.com. I have the tab for hundreds of punk, rock, and grunge songs up there, plus some other resources. And here we go. So just a quick note on the equipment I'm using today. I'm using my Fender Twin Reverb 65 reissue amp, and I'm going to use a Proco Rat pedal for distortion. I have links in the description if you want to check those out. If you buy them through the Amazon links, I get a tiny commission, which helps support the channel. So for my songwriting process, I basically sit down with the guitar and I kind of mess around with either riffs or chord progressions that I like. So in the process of sitting down and recording, if I come up with a chord progression that elicits kind of an emotional response for me or I really like a lot, oftentimes that will end up being the chorus. It doesn't necessarily always happen that way. Sometimes it ends up being the verse, but a lot of times I will come up with the chorus first. So for example, with my song Submission, here's the chorus I came up with. So it's really simple. It's in the key of F sharp and it's 4 chords. And so working from that framework, once I have a chord progression or a riff that I like, I will often just try and hear or hum a vocal progression over the top of it. Now, a lot of times when I'm sitting and playing the chord progression or the riff and humming the what I hear in my head as far as a vocal melody, I don't have words yet, I just kind of have a vocal melody. It will often follow the chord progression very closely. It's almost like I'm concentrating a lot on playing the chords, so my brain is kind of translating what I'm concentrating into a vocal melody that closely matches the chords. And sometimes this can be good, and sometimes it can be not the most interesting melody. So if what I'm hearing in my head or humming along doesn't seem that interesting, or it's too closely following the chord progression, but I really am attached to that chord progression or riff, what I will do is I will play it over and over again and record it on a voice memo app on my phone or something like that. And then what I'll do is I will listen to it and see if I can hum a melody that maybe would be difficult to sing if I was playing the guitar at the same time. Oftentimes when I first come up with a riff or a chord progression, until I've kind of practiced the vocal melody, it's hard for me to separate the two. So in this beginning stage, to see if the song's kind of worth pursuing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play that riff over and over again on the recording, and I'm going to kind of hum a vocal pattern over the top and see if it still seems interesting to me and something I want to pursue. Now, if nothing's progressing from there and I'm getting kind of stuck there and I'm still not coming up with something interesting, often the last attempt I will do to kind of salvage the chord progression is I will try and play something on the guitar along with that recording that could possibly be a vocal melody. So what I'll do is I'll figure out what key it is. In this case, it's in the key of F sharp. And then I'll play a pattern in a scale that I know, to keep it simple, you could play the minor pentatonic. And I'm going to want to try and keep that within my vocal range. So you can kind of hum your neutral vocal range that fits the first chord, and then kind of figure out what part of the scale your vocal range is and match it up. And then you can kind of noodle around and try and figure out if you can kind of come up with an interesting melody that goes along with those chords that you could also sing. So then at this point, if I'm still not getting anywhere, I will often just save the recording and maybe come back to it in a few weeks. But once I kind of hit that dead end, I don't try to force it in the session that I'm doing. I might move on to something else if I still have the energy, or I might just be like, that's good enough for today, and I'm going to come back refreshed tomorrow. So in the case of this song's Submission, I recorded those 4 chords over and over again, and I came up with a vocal melody in my head and hummed along to it, and I liked it enough to pursue, so I decided to continue. So next, after I've kind of nailed down a chorus that I like, and I've decided that this part is going to be the chorus, I move on to coming up with a second part. Usually this is the verse. If I've already got the verse, this could be the chorus. Usually I'm trying to nail down the main chunks of the song first. So in this case, I've got the chorus first. Now I want to go and come up with a verse. So what I will often do, and this is just my process, you can learn the theory on chord progressions and tying together verses and choruses. And there's a lot of great videos out there on that. I like to just use my ear. So I kind of come from like the punk rock school of songwriting. And to me, I don't care if it's technically right or wrong. I'm trying to make something that I like. So if the chords work for me, they work for me. It doesn't really matter to me if they're right or wrong where it comes from, a songwriting theory. But like I said, there's a lot of videos out there that can teach you what chords can go with what chords and different types of chord progressions, whether they're from the major or minor. And if you want to do it that way, that's great. A lot of times using my ear, I am kind of backing into that process. The chords that I end up deciding to use for each part fit within the framework of theory, like a minor chord progression or a major chord progression. So I like to just use my ear. Other people like to use theory to kind of tweak the chords. So for the verse on this one, I really liked the intensity of those chords, And so what I wanted to do in the verse is I wanted to kind of tone it down. I wanted to bring it back down so that when I hit the chorus, I've got a big impact. And I really like just I guess what you'd call the interval of those notes and those chords. So what I kind of decided to do was like, let's just take those same chords, let's pull the guitar out and just see if we could run like a bass line with it. And so I basically kept the same chords, same chord progression, just changed the rhythm and just dropped the guitar out and did a bass line. So the bass line just basically is those same chords, the root notes. Just playing eighth notes. And so what I'm kind of doing here is I am changing the dynamics of the song. So I'm bringing it back so that I can mellow things out and then I can hit it hard when I get back to the chorus, which is something I like to do, have that big dynamic shift. And so another thing that I like to do with the dynamics is I like to do kind of a build up in the verse. So we start where basically the guitar plays this part. And then when we get to the verse, I just let that first chord ring out as the bass comes in. And so I'm kind of mellowing it out and then I'm introducing that bass line. And so for this song, that bass line is the verse. And then I just started doing the same kind of process. This time I played along and I just hummed in my head because it was pretty simple. It was something straightforward so I could do both. And I just hummed some words that I thought would fit the verse. And so once I came up with that, I was kind of struggling with the transition from the kind of mellow part going into the full-on. So what I decided to do was kind of increase the tension by getting like a little bit louder. So the bass continues. And there's no guitar. And then I decided to just add this kind of like tension building. It's not really a riff, but to kind of increase the tension before we go to the chorus. So what I did is I took the same chords because the bass line's playing the same thing, and I just played the bottom two notes on each chord. And I just went back and forth like that along with the bass line. And so you've got like kind of like, I like to think of it as like the next step up before you're going to hit it hard in the chorus. So I've got the kind of bass line, which is just the bass, no pun intended. And then I've got like this tension building guitar. And then when we get to the chorus, we're going to go full on and change the rhythm and hit the chorus hard. So we kind of do that build up. And then that last time through before we get to the chorus, we're just going to go. And then we're going to hit the chorus hard. So again, that big dynamic shift kind of increases the impact of the chorus. And now I had these two parts together and it felt like something that I could continue working on. So now that I have these two parts, I kind of wanted to work on the structure of the song. So to work on the structure, a lot of times I'll go back and forth, just playing and humming in my head the verse and the chorus back and forth, and see if it feels like kind of a natural tradition to just go straight from the chorus to the verse. In this case, it just felt like because the chords were so similar that there needed to be something to break up the transition from the chorus to the verse. So what I did was I just kind of messed around with another riff, and I like to, when I'm trying to come up with another riff, like a bridge part, I like to start with the first note of the song and see if I can come up with a bridge part based off the first note of the song. Because a lot of times when you're coming from a part, you're going to go back to that first chord. So like, for example, if we're going from the chorus to the verse, you're going back to that first F sharp chord, and it's kind of expected, and I know it'll fit. So what I'll do is I'll start off with that chord, and if I can't come up with anything that starts with that chord, then I'll start to kind of expand and see if there's some other chords I can start with. But in this case, that chord worked, and I came up with this riff. And I felt like it was just long enough to kind of break up those two parts. And also it's something that you're not exactly expecting because you're used to coming back to the first chord and let it hanging when it goes to the verse. So it kind of breaks things up, I thought, very nicely. So I added that bridge, and I decided that bridge is going to happen for the most part after every chorus. So now I've got the three parts. I've got the verse, I've got the chorus, and I've got that mini bridge to separate the two. So now that I've got the basic parts of the song down and a good idea of the vocal melody in my head, I can start kind of working on the overall format of the song. Now, even with that mini bridge transition going from the chorus to the verse, I felt like it didn't need the singing right away coming back into the verse. I felt like it just needed a little bit of time to mellow out. So after playing the mini bridge, I felt like just letting that chord hang and then having the bass kind of creep up underneath it. But I didn't want to bring the vocals in right away because I felt like it was a little too abrupt. It needed a little time to kind of simmer a little bit. So what I did was I just added some guitar fills. I kept that bass line going, and then I added just some like mellow guitar fills, and like a bend. And then I decided to keep these fills like in between some of the vocal lines, just to kind of add just a little difference to the verse. And so that really kind of solidified the format for me. So now I've got like the full verse, I've got the build-up, which is kind of like a verse or pre-chorus, I've got the chorus, and then I've got the mini bridge to separate the transitions. And one thing I like to do in my songs, and this doesn't necessarily have to be the right way, is I don't like to do the same format more than twice. So, for example, if you're going to go verse, chorus, I don't like to go back to another verse. It's kind of expected. It can get a little monotonous. Now, this isn't a rule with every song, but this is just the way I just don't like to do that. I like to introduce something different so that it's not expected or it doesn't get monotonous. So for this song, the format, basically what I have so far is verse, pre-chorus, chorus, mini bridge, then the same pattern, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, mini bridge. And then I was kind of trying to figure out what's the next element I want to bring into this to break up the monotony. And so I decided a guitar solo would kind of fit after that mini bridge because you're kind of expecting it to like kind of hang on that last chord and go back into a mellow part. So let's bring something that's a little bit more intense. So I basically just added like a 4-bar chorus there and then worked on a guitar solo over the top in that same key, in that F sharp key. So then coming out of the guitar solo, we're kind of at max intensity. Want to bring it back down a little bit, and then I'm going to go for high intensity at the end of the song. So I brought in back to the mellow verse again, and with the same format, verse, pre-chorus, and then we go into the chorus again. And one of the things I like to do at the end of the song to kind of increase the intensity or maximize the intensity is to do a double chorus and do something different for the second chorus, like change up the vocals a little bit. If you can change the pitch of the vocals, pop them up a little bit to increase the intensity. One tip I can give from going from verse to chorus, is to keep your verse in a lower pitch and then get a drastic pitch change when you hit the chorus. That'll increase the intensity of the chorus, or the perceived intensity of the chorus. It can go from singing to screaming, depending on the style of music. So I like to do a double chorus with the second half of the chorus, or the second chorus, being of a higher intensity or different lyrics or some type of change to kind of increase the impact. And I like to end the song on a high impact, high intensity. In this case, what I did was I did 3 choruses because the chorus was kind of short and I felt it was strong enough to triple it up. So I did 2 normal choruses, and then the last chorus is just repeating the first line of the chorus over and over again until the end of the song. At this point, I have the overall format of the song, and I just felt like there needed to be an intro. And so a lot of times what a lot of songwriters like to do, and I like to do, is introduce the chorus first, because it tends to be the strongest part of the song. So I introduced the chorus first without any singing, just to kind of tease it at the beginning of the song. And so basically what I was going to do is just start the song with and have like the whole band come in. But I felt like it just was like a little too abrupt. So what I did was something that like Nirvana likes to do and other bands used to do a little bit more often. It doesn't seem to happen as much, is I just did a clean tone. And then just went into the full on at the end of that last chord of the chorus. So I played it twice, and then the band kicks in like with a drum intro on that last chord of the second time, and then it goes through like a 4-bar chorus without any singing, and then into the verse. So once I have the main format of the song and all the parts done, I like to record all the basic tracks. So bass, like 1 or 2 rhythm guitars, with a drum machine or a metronome, and just kind of like hear the format so that I can see like, okay, is this all work together? Is this too long? Is it too short? What is this kind of like feel all together? And then if I like that format, I'll start doing some test vocals. So I will start kind of singing nonsense words in the melody that I like along with the tracks. And that way I can kind of hear, okay, I like this. This is something that I want to like go on with and complete all the rest of the tracks. Sometimes I'll hear it and I'll be like, it just doesn't sound like what I thought it sounded like in my head. And I'm just going to like put this aside for a little bit and come back to it, another time, and see if it's still something interesting, or if I still don't like the way it is, and then just scrap it. I think that's a very good thing to do in any songwriting process, is to take some time away from things. A lot of times you'll write like a riff or a song or something or a part, and you'll be like, wow, this is amazing. And then you'll come back to it later and be like, oh, what was I thinking? So it's always good to take like a little bit of time off and come back to things. And if you still feel like this is something worthwhile, then you can continue on. Now, it's also good, like when you have that strike of inspiration or motivation, to complete as much as you can with your energy, because a lot of times that inspiration is in the moment. And so what I like to do is just get all of the parts done, even if it's just rough, and get a basic format. And then if I need to take a break and come back to it, then I can come back. I haven't really lost anything. But if you come up with a nice chorus and then you just kind of like, okay, I'll come back to this later and do the verse, you might not have that same inspiration again. So for me, I like to try and write as much as I can, get the basic tracks done, and then if I need to take a break and come back to it later, I can do that. So now I've got me singing the nonsense words over the basic tracks, and I'll leave the vocals as a scratch track on my Logic Pro. And then I'll usually take a break and start writing the lyrics. So for me, when writing lyrics, I like to take the overall tone of the song and just see what kind of images it evokes in my brain. So for Submission, it was kind of an aggressive song. And it kind of felt like a dystopian type of vibe for me. So I kind of went with lyrics that kind of reflected that in my mind. And now with me, I usually come up with one really good verse that I like a lot. And then the subsequent verses I need to like redo over and over and over again. So usually at this point in the process, I will sing the actual words, at least one vocal line of the actual words, along with the scratch track, and make sure it matches up with the nonsense words I was singing before, like rhythm-wise and emphasis-wise. A lot of times when I go from the nonsense words, I have emphasis on certain words, and then when I write the lyrics out, the emphasis on a certain word might change, or even while the syllables might be the same, or the cadence might be the same, the emphasis when we speak can be on different words. So what I basically am doing here is making sure the words that I wrote, the emphasis matches the nonsense stuff that I was singing before, which will have its own emphasis. And a lot of times I'll have to change a word here, there, or an entire line so that the emphasis lines up with what I was singing before. And then once I'm happy with all of the lyrics, everything's fitting the way I want it to, the chorus is where I want it to be, everything's kind of smoothed out, I'll move on to like more of the details. So I'll add the guitar fills, I'll work on a guitar solo, over and over and over again. And I'll just kind of nail down the details the way I like it. A lot of times what this comes down to is taking spots where like you think someone's attention might be kind of wandering and maybe add an interesting fill, or taking long periods of maybe just instrumentals and adding some type of emphasis over the top. Like this is just kind of the detail work. So at this point, I have basically the entire song hashed out. I've got all the details done. And then it's really just kind of like the production type stuff. With my home recordings, I consider them more demos because I usually have a drum machine. And so I consider them more demos, but I'll tweak like some of the details here and there. And I'll have a really good demo version that I can take to the band so we can work on it from there. But at this point, I am going to take a break from the song, at least for like a week. And then I will come back to it and see if I still like all the decisions that I made. And I might tweak like some fills here or there. There might be a word or a line in the lyrics that I don't like, and I'll just come back and re-record it or redo it. So that's basically my main process. Now, everybody's going to have different ways of doing things. This is how I like to do it, from writing from a guitar perspective. There's also some songs that I don't write starting with the guitar, but most of the time as a guitar player, I start with the guitar and then bring the lyrics from there. So just to recap, all along the song, you are making some little decisions here or there that affect the song. And I think it's really important at every decision point to decide, how does this help the song? So some of the biggest decisions that I like to think about when working on a song is like the dynamics. How can I create the biggest impact through the use of dynamics, loud, soft, clean, distorted tones, that kind of thing. And then how can I keep the listener from getting bored? So, not going the predictable route on chord progressions, maybe adding a guitar fill here or there, maybe, throwing a bridge, maybe when you expect to go from the chorus to the verse, going to a different part, just things to keep the listener interested. And then stepping back and seeing the song as a whole. A lot of times we will get hyper-focused on the individual parts of the song and want to make them as best we can, that we fail to see that maybe they're not working together with everything else or the song as a whole. So really, I guess, coming from the mindset of how does every decision and every part serve the song as a whole. So that's it for this one. I hope you liked the video. Remember to like and subscribe. That way you get notified when I post new videos like these. And check out my website, ScottO'BrienGuitar.com. I have the tab for hundreds of punk, rock, and grunge songs up there. And I will see you guys next time.